What's the best diet for fat loss?
The best diet is kind of one of these things where if you get some core principles aligned in your diet, the result is like there's many different kinds of diets that work super well. To use a completely absurd and rather curt analogy, it's like asking a young male, average young male, like, what's the most beautiful kind of girl? Who's going to be like, all right, so like no obvious insane disfigurement, having a body that like, you feel me, works, uh, can't be like so thin that I'm like, oh my God, are you okay? Can't be grotesque looking. And then a few other check marks, and then the universe is wide open for all sorts of girls to be found comparably attractive. And so in dieting that works in a similar way, the first absolutely biggest part of fat loss dieting is, are you eating fewer calories on average than you burn per day? Because if you're not doing that, you have to like gain a lot of muscle while you lose fat at the same time to get leaner. And muscle gain happens on a very different time scale than fat loss. Like you can lose fat 10 times faster and kind of 10 times more of it per unit time than muscle gain. So when people are like, yeah, I'm just going to stay the same weight, but I'm going to bulk up my muscles and reduce my fat, like that can work when you're a beginner pretty well. It can work very slowly when you're advanced, but generally you have to lose some weight to see the most powerful fat loss. And really the only way you can lose weight is how many calories you're burning per day is a little bit higher than how many calories you're taking in. And so if you have a calorie deficit, which can be accomplished through really kind of any diet, then you're well on your way to burning lots of fat and having really great results. And there are so many ways to generate a calorie deficit. For example, you can eat a traditional vegan diet from back in the 90s. The reason that is great at calorie deficit is like, if you try to eat a traditional vegan diet with no processed foods, bro, there ain't nothing that good to eat unless you're willing to spend hours in the kitchen making the shit. So foods end up being really simple, kind of bland, very low and super high amounts of fat and sugar. And so like kind of by default, you just end up not eating a lot. The same is true for like a keto diet or a carnivore diet. Imagine like, here's what's on the menu. Just like raw or cooked beef, period. Gain weight. You're like, but I'm done eating steak for the next 8 hours. Like, guess what? Next up is steak again. Okay, there's only so much excitement I can generate for that. And so it's easy to get a caloric deficit. Whereas like you can technically generate a caloric deficit, and people have done this in the documentary space, eating only McDonald's, and they absolutely lose as much weight and fat as you would expect. But that's tough because McDonald's is really, really tasty. And so you have a real hard time being like, I know I'm supposed to stop at one cheeseburger, but boy, oh boy, does another cheeseburger sound good after I finish the first one. So calorie deficit's the first part. The second part's probably a sufficient amount of protein, because fat loss is different than weight loss. Fat loss sort of implies, in most cases, and probably should, that you don't want to lose your muscle mass. It's the difference between you showing up, to some kind of hangout, let's say on the beach, a few months after no one's seen you, and people being like, dude, holy shit, bro, you look ripped. Versus people like, dude, you good, man? Like, are you going through something? Are you sick or some shit like that? Because you don't want to look like, no offense, like a cancer patient or some shit, but that's what's going to happen if you lose a lot of muscle. So if you eat enough protein in your diet, something like around a gram per pound per day. How much do you weigh, if you don't mind me asking?
About 190.
Yeah. You look 195 from where I'm sitting.
Wow.
Maybe even 197.
Maybe I am 195. Maybe like 194. Yeah.
There you go. So you would need to eat like something like around 200 grams of protein per day to really green checkmark the idea that you're getting enough. And there's a very rich debate in literature and among experts. It's actually could be a little substantially less than that. It could be in some cases quite a bit more than that. But on average, a gram per pound just probably won't steer you wrong. So if you have a calorie deficit, you're eating fewer calories than you burn, and you have enough protein, you spread it through anywhere between really like 2 and 7 meals per day. Those two things, as long as you're lifting and stuff and preserving your muscle in other ways, getting decent sleep, those two core elements probably account for something like, in the real world, 60% of the variance from fat loss diets of different kinds. In a theoretical world where you've excised certain variables, I'll talk about in just a second, maybe 80%. And the remaining variables, probably the biggest one of them, is what's called a food palatability. And palatability of food is basically how tasty your food is and how much you want to keep eating it after you've had whatever is prescribed for your meal. So if you get the RP Diet Coach app, it'll tell you like, okay, you'll make a diet. It's super simple, a couple clicks. It tells you in this meal, you eat this much protein, carbs, fats, etc. But it doesn't tell you what foods to eat unless you wanted to. And then it'll be like, okay, like eat this, that. But most people are like, I know what I want. depending on what kind of foods you choose for every meal of your diet, even if it's the same number of calories, even if it's the same number of protein, can really, really change what kind of a time you're having on the diet as far as hunger signaling. The number one, by a long shot, reason that more people are fat and obese today than before is because they have easy, cheap access to a huge plethora of conveniently pre-made or minimally required for your effort, ultra tasty foods. Like, that's just it. And if you continue to eat foods that are insanely tasty, especially if your calories come down to below maintenance and you draw out that diet, because dieting takes some time, weeks and months, not days, and you diet for 6 weeks pretty hard, it becomes a thing where any amount of tasty food you look at, you're like, bro, I'm about to crush this. And after you crush it out, you're not full. You want more. But if you purposefully eat foods that like most bodybuilders eat for competition, bland foods, nothing to get excited about. Imagine you go to the super expensive Michelin star restaurant, you with your friends, you're like, man, we're about to get our grub on, this is gonna be dope. And they serve you like boiled chicken, plain white rice, and like cut up broccoli. You're gonna be like, all right. And they're like, oh, it's like equitably sourced from this farm in Guatemala. And you're like, okay, I guess that's what the Michelin stars are for. After a couple bites, you're like, fuck this, man. Get me the hell out of here. And someone's like, oh, you already paid money. Don't you want to eat the food? You're like, not really, man. There's no more pleasure coming out of this for me. And so by modulating the pleasure value of your food, how tasty it is, you can mega hack your way into eating the same calories, the same protein, the same other macros, getting functionally the same or almost identical results for fat loss, but making the diet much easier on yourself. Quick, stupid ass analogy. Imagine you were like, all right, no sexual activity, no splooging for, is that it's a scientifically accepted term, right? So no splooging for like, what's challenging for people? I don't know, I'm gonna say myself, a week, like, I'm looking at everybody like, what the fuck's going on, right? And you can do it one of two ways. You can say, okay, I'm just gonna like do my work, I'm gonna do my training, I'm gonna hang out with friends, and I'm just gonna like watch regular YouTube before I go to sleep, and that's it. Or you can be like, you know what, man, I'm gonna look at some fucking porn every day. I'm gonna hang out with a couple of my friends that they think I'm hot. I'm single, they're single. I think they're fucking hot. They're always playing fucking little seduction games with me. I got to push them away. That's what I'm going to do to myself. You're going to have a hard fucking week if you do it that way. Same number of days not spend, jerking it or getting it on, but you made it very difficult for yourself by introducing just more desire into the equation. The ultimate desire about food during a fat loss diet is if it's tasty and I eat some of it, I want more. Imagine if you were really hungry and I give you a regular shaped slice of pizza. You look, enjoy, you'd eat it and be like, okay, so like, where's the rest of the pizza? Whereas if I gave you like same calories, 2 protein bars and an apple, you would eat the apple, eat 1 protein bar, and halfway through the other one, you'd be like, I'm actually good, man. I don't need any more of this shit. Being able to pick foods for you that you get ultra super excited about is a big, big hack. So lower your calories, eat enough protein, choose foods that are tasty, it's fine, but not the kind of tasty like a bag of like Cheetos or some shit, especially when you're high. You ever done that? Like open up a bag of Cheetos when you're high and you're like, watch this trick. Boom, they're gone. Bag number 2, boom. Okay, I have a headache. Bag number 3, it doesn't fucking matter. You want to stay away more from foods like that and stay more to minimally processed whole foods that maybe you're not trying your absolute best to make as delicious as possible all the time. You're like, this is a diet, this is temporary, it's just 6 weeks. I'm going to eat a little bit more of a monk lifestyle right now. Then you get amazing results. It actually isn't even that hard. And then as you come out of your diet back to normal, still lifting, still active, you can start to pepper in a little bit more bullshit, a bit more junk, a bit more tasty stuff, because you've already done the work of losing the fat, and keeping the fat off is much easier than losing it.